到2019炉石战记 HCT 世界总决赛第3天赛程的现场，我是主持人安娜丽。Welcome back to the 2019 HCT World Championship. I am the host of the day, Anna Lee. 刚刚呢，我们已经看到的是我们的这个 B 组的淘汰赛，是由我们的 Language Hacker 以让1追3的一个状态呢，是取得了胜利。那接下来呢，要继续进行到的是我们 C 组的挑战赛，将是 Ike 对上 A83650。第一场小组赛呢，已经略为失利的 Ike， 接下来要对到的呢，是非常具有冠军相的神秘数字人。那当然呢，压力很大是没有话说，但是呢，我们选手也表示，虽然呢，在这一场的比赛里面，每一场都是压力很大，可是他们也会享受这个站在世界舞台的机会，所以也希望他们有非常好的发挥咯。The next match is going to be the third match of today, and this match is going to be the elimination of Group C. Ike is going to fight against A83650. Okay, gentlemen, please come to the center and please shake your hands. Good luck. Please take a seat. 接下来我们就把画面交给主播赛评。Let's hand it over to our casters.
Here we go, ready for match number 3 of the day. I'm Raven, and joining me, of course, is Sottle. You might not have seen us for a fair few hours since it's our first cast of the day, but you've had an exciting few matches to check out because we were loving it backstage, just being able to sit back and watch the fireworks pretty much.
You might not have seen us for a fair few hours if you just watched game 1 of the previous series.
That is very, very true, but as you can see on your screen now, we have Ike versus A83650.
Went a bit 3D for a second then. I thought A8 was reaching into my soul as he went for those headphones. Jeez.
The camera comes back to us and we just have those like red and blue lens glasses on, and we're like, yeah, new technology here at the World Championship. But no, the stage does look fantastic, so I can forgive you for being deceived there. But most importantly, this matchup is just going to be another one we've cast. It's going to be an Americas player versus a European player.
Right.
And looking at the lineups, very, very interesting. Control Warriors are banned out. The Rogues are going to be played. Zoo is going to be played, which we can talk a lot about today, I think.
Really? Why is that?
We'll get to it. We've got time, Sol.
All right.
But then the big question marks, and I feel like the players have one each here. Token Druid and mid-range Shaman is about as good as it's going to get for A8 in terms of describing this deck.
Yeah, and in particular, the build of Shaman that A8 has is probably had the most spotlight on it. I think this is a general point that we should really dig into that perhaps we haven't covered, is that we all, and me chief amongst us, have been very critical of a lot of the deck choices that people have made, and it's very easy for us to do that with hindsight because deck submission for these players was over a week ago at this point, right? And we have the benefit of hindsight coming into a very quickly evolving metagame to look at a bunch of these decks and go, well, here we are a week later and these decks aren't all over ladder, like no one's playing these, this looks weird. So chief amongst them, like A8's mid-range Shaman, like maybe this is a fantastic deck that just he's found, but it certainly hasn't caught on with the rest of the community. And us looking back on it, we're on ladder certainly playing completely different types of Shaman deck at this point. And then the other big question mark that falls into that category is, for me, Zoo. I mean, we can go into the Rafal meme all you want, but on the surface, I personally just don't feel Zoo is a very strong deck to have been brought to this tournament in general. And the stats in the tournament actually seem to reflect that, with Zoo being 12 and 18 right now, which is the worst performing deck with a significant sample size in the event. But a lot of players, when we asked them about it, just honestly said that they ran out of time. They were trying to find a deck to not bring Zoo, or in Ike's case, a deck to not bring this Token Druid, and they just couldn't do it.
Right, when the questioning came down for the players, the interviews, a lot of our questions changed from the usual to, oh, so what is this deck and what does it do?
Right.
And does it do things?
Right.
But yeah, let's get into this game now as the turns start ticking away. It's going to be, one of the question decks, I'll say, which is Ike's Token Druid. And I actually think he's one of the first people to say that this is not a refined deck. He already has been talking about changes he wants to make going forward from this tournament to this build to make it much better in his eyes, at least.
Yeah, and that really leads on from the point I was just making where, if Ike had a bit more time to play around with this deck, he says that he's got a superior build cooking right now, which makes a couple of cuts, couple of additions, borrows from a few other Druid archetypes to kind of make a more rounded strategy, more versatile strategy. Has been playing it in the practice room and having great success with it. But, like I said, submission was, what, 9-10 days ago now at this point?
It's a long time.
So they just kind of had to take a leap of faith with what they submitted. And yes, they're going to end up with some suboptimal decks, and we're going to talk about that. Sorry.
Don't say sorry to me, Sol. I'm involved too. I'm just as guilty. But we see here the Ornate Tortoise is available as, to be honest, a minion that might be a little bit difficult for A8 to deal with, because outside of a Flying Carpet, or Magic Carpet, why did I just forget the name of that card? Which one is it? I'm going to check.
What? Magic Carpet.
I was like, Flying Carpet, Magic Carpet, both sound just as likely to be called. But anyway, outside of that, dealing like 5 damage just from, you know, a potentially even state board is actually quite difficult, I think.
If you're playing Zoo, you'd be disappointed if you had no options to be able to do that between Direwolves, Knife Jugglers, Abusive Sergeant, Soulfire, Grim Rally. Like, you have enough tools to get there. 5 is a big gap to bridge, I will agree. But it's kind of, if Zoo is a deck that's failing to trade up into a mid-range minion with their small minions, it's kind of failing as an archetype, right?
Yeah, my key point, though, in this matchup, it's against a mid-range minion that may have support from Dreamway Guardians, Crystallizers early on that can reduce the board state down early.
Right.
So it's more of, you know, if the 1 and 2 drops get hit for Ike, then he has things to trade away to make this 5 health gap much further. But we'll see how it plans out as a Solar Wrath. You may not recognize this card. It's not actually a new spell in itself. It's one half of the Wrath combo. The new Druid Legendary you can see on the board, Keeper Philandris, I believe, gives you the separate versions of each choose one for any spell you play.
Yeah. And the game team actually updated the art even on the choose one effects to reflect the fact that they would be brand new cards in your hand when given to you by Keeper. It's kind of neat.
Yeah, a small note, though, that was actually a little bit surprising to me is Archmage Vargoth does not cast the one you choose necessarily. It still picks a random one, which is interesting just because they are separate spells now. I thought initially it would have picked the same.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, okay, I can see why you'd think that. Yeah.
But so far, the Evil Genius, one of the cards along with the carpet that makes Zoo even a thing right now, has been played. So the lackeys start coming into play, Grim Rally hitting the board, and suddenly A8 is looking pretty reasonable here.
Yeah, and Admirable and TJ had a little falling out earlier about which of the 2 cards this deck was built around, whether it was a Magic Carpet deck that then meant you played a lot of little 1-drops, so you put Evil Genius and Grim Rally in your deck, or whether Evil Genius and Grim Rally were the good cards, and then because you had all these small minions to sacrifice, you put Magic Carpet in your deck. The bottom line is that's probably a semantic argument and they're both right, but it was entertaining nonetheless.
Yeah, it's a very interesting question though, isn't it? I feel my response very quickly would be, I've seen 1-mana Sea Giants rush into things this tournament that felt very, very powerful and game-winning. So I'm going to go for the carpet if I had to pick. But back on this game, the Ornate Tortoise is available. But most importantly, the swipe was dodged, I'll say. Can be used to clear off the 3-4, of course, and chip away the other minions. But if there was a clean swipe on a wide board, that can be backbreaking against it. Also, a slight note, just giving the nod to Sea Giants. There are none in Ike's list, but there are in A8's list, so Ike has to consider cards like Whispering Woods and to whether they're just going to give A8 some Sea Giants. It's got to be something just in the back of his mind, I think, to just say, if like even one Sea Giant comes down now, it's going to be a little bit dicey.
I think Ike doesn't have them in this Druid deck he's playing right now, right? Because he is playing Sea Giant in his Zoo.
Yeah, in Druid. I mean, it's a reasonable idea to play a Sea Giant in a token deck, regardless of class. Scheme looks good to me here. An additional refill a little bit later on, don't need it soon, and Zoo can tap into enough stuff to always play anyway, to not need to have to pick a card that you can play next turn.
Yeah, agreed. I think for me, Refarm Scheme off the Discover is very often like a good, a default option. Like you look at the other 2 cards, all right, I don't really want either of these. Refarm Scheme is fine, right? Like eventually it will do something worthwhile.
Or get discarded by one of these Soulfires.
Also true.
Looks like this could be as good a swipe as he's going to get in the near future. And with the pickup of Acorn to Bearer, it does mean that there is something to play this turn, which is very, very important. The swipe past take minimum 4 was never going to be that fun.
Yeah, Ike's plays are getting somewhat more powerful from this point forward. Did have a little bit of a clunky opener, and it's kind of what happens when you get half of his kind of little combo addition to his token druid without finding the other half, right? It's actually, before I hopped on the Refarm train, the #1 deck in this tournament that I was giving stick to was Ike's Druid.
Right.
Because I am not a fan of the way he's built this deck either. Having seen the improvements we talked about before, I actually think that's got a much more robust game plan to it. But to me, this deck from Ike needs a lot of magic to happen to get everything to line up in the position where, you know, you get the heal cards down, you've drawn the Tortoise early to allow yourself to heal, and then you get those stags out to pay that off. You know, if that doesn't happen, you're sacrificing so much over just a regular Token Druid deck, which I even don't think is that high power level to begin with, that you get stuck in pretty similar situations to what you're looking at right now, where he had the Crystallizer, he's had the Tortoise, but without the heal cards to pay off, he's just continued to have clunky, awkward cards in his hand, like Crystal Stag and the Ornery Tortoise. Double Tortoise now.
I mean, do you think he might just have to bite the bullet here, or is it going to be too much of a loss if he just drops? Because I feel like now, 2 5-health minions is something he just needs regardless of health total. He can take the damage to a certain extent, and if he doesn't do that, I know you've got a soft spot for Tending Tauren.
I do.
I know it's one of your favorite cards of all time. But if he doesn't
slightly overstated, but proceed.
I feel if he didn't go for something big this turn, he's running out of time to do anything. Actually, he has come for the actual the Wrath for 1, or the Wrath spell to be able to draw an additional card. But everything just looks like the Zoo deck should beat it in the following turn. There's the greetings, the thumbs up, the smile and the nod.
Hang on. There's just such universal regard for the Tortoise that it acknowledges an emo and a thumbs up from across the board. Did I miss a meeting where we all decided the Ornery Tortoise was the best card in the game?
Or I think it's more likely that the meeting decided it was the worst, and it was just a smile and a nod from both players saying, well, there's 5 damage.
It was legitimately just a thumbs up of thanks, saying, oh, thank you for playing that terrible card in your deck. Yeah, that makes sense.
His farm scheme being used and the Grim Rally pickup is going to improve this even more.
And this is what I was talking about, right? Like, this is glory days Zoo. Argent Squire kills a 4-drop and stays on the board.
Ouch. And that was one of my points, though, with it would have hurt, but just like the double Tortoise, you think, right, well, if they can kill 1, they can't kill 2, you know, almost all the time. We can see that he potentially could have based on what he wanted to do there, but still.
Can you say tortoise for me again? I really like the way you say it.
Tortoise.
Yeah. It's genuine. Guy, you can't see this, but that's genuinely making me smile right now.
I don't know what I'm doing, but I like it. It makes a nice change for years of being laughed at for saying Shaman. Yeah. So, you know, Ike, I'm going to have to persuade you to keep playing Tortoise in your deck. Okay. This is what happens when we have a very long opening 2 matches and Sol and I are on match 3, sorry.
I'm just having a good time. Okay. Tell you who isn't having a good time right now. It's our boy at the top there.
Right.
Ike buried deep in the tank trying to find his way out of this. His Crystal Stag, of course, not yet activated because of the lack of healing cards that he's picked up. And this is kind of what I mean when I say that this deck kind of requires some miracles sometimes.
Just have a quick look at the list. I can confirm that, nope, Spreading Plague did rotate.
Yes.
As that would be a game-breaking card right now.
Yeah, the 15 1-drop Zoo would not be much of a force in the metagame if Spreading Plague was still hanging around, more than likely.
Solarium to make it less likely to discard the second Soulfire. I like it.
Oh,
I like that more, though.
Pack it up. Ike, I think it's time to play the next game, my friend.
How much damage? Is this double Soulfire damage? It's not right. 10, 18. Oh,
yeah, it's 18. It's 18
18
if Soulfire doesn't discard Soulfire.
Get in there and fight, maggot.
Gonna let it rip.
Ooh, okay.
Twice in 2 opportunities for double Soulfire lethal we've seen missed in this World Championship. Unlike last time, I don't think there was a way for A8 to find the guaranteed route instead.
Yeah, and also when the backup is, oh no, I'll play an A8 when I cannot die next turn.
No, Raven! Build the drama! Push the narrative!
Okay!
That flip was everything! A8 having lost that
it is not our job.
Soulfire out.
Doesn't matter. Okay. This was looking too much last turn. It's looking just as bad this turn, if not worse.
Yeah.
And that was the key. A8 had the not really common outcome of saying, I can go for lethal this turn, and if I just don't get it this turn, then I almost certainly get it the turn after.
Right.
And you know, it's the best of both worlds, whereas normally a one or the other decision has to be made, right?
Yep. So now Ike leaves, 9 damage on the board, puts himself at 10. So juggler lethals are there or thereabouts. Has 2 shots at it to put Ike out of his relative misery in this game 1. And it looks like with how quickly A8 is following up that attack, that after losing Flip on the Soulfire, he does find his way there with a knife juggler, but all jokes aside, it really didn't matter what any of those rolls decided the outcome was. His position was wrapped up, again, just by the poor start from the Druid deck, and I really feel like Ike's build of that Druid opens him up to even more poor openings, potentially, as well as a few absolute insane high rolls to give the deck its due, but it opens himself up to so much more inconsistency with the way he's built it, and I think you just saw him run into that. He drew all the cards that damaged him and none of the cards that healed him, and that just kind of helped Zoo do his job.
Yeah, and funnily, even in a backwards way, as we mentioned, the players had to submit these a long time ago now, basically. And even just the Keeper Steladris and the Wrath, like the single Wrath and a couple of packages like that, that was slow, but that's a very powerful legendary 2/3 on curve into a removal spell that gives you 2 more removal spells, and I still don't think it's particularly right for this deck, because it just doesn't do what you actually need to do most of the time, which is make tokens thick and fast, and then push damage with cards like Savage Roar and the other buffs.
It does with Power of the Wild, though. It does exactly what you want it to do with Power of the Wild.
But exactly that combo is my problem, right? And like when you play a 2/3 and removal and it's still not good enough to do anything because of some other lackluster draws, of course, then you start to think, well, do I just need more one-drops?
And I think that is, setting Ike's build aside, I think that is the #1 problem with all variants of Token Druid right now, is that you play all these combos that you want to use in combination with each other. Big surprise, that's how a combo works. But you're playing a 0-card draw deck. You're not playing the ramp-up Ultimate Infestation, draw your deck, punish them with these huge oppressive combos version anymore, because those cards don't exist. You're trying to find some way to curve out and naturally be aggressive without card draw, but yet so many of your cards are synergistic and combo-based. And it's just not a very, very consistent game plan as far as I see it.
Yep, and okay, here we're going to go straight into game number 2. And say it again, these are the question mark decks for me, and they're coming up against each other, which is pretty great. I'm kind of excited for this one. It's going to be the mid-range Shaman from A8, and then Ike on the Druid again. A little bit of a better opening. I feel like the Dreamweave Guardians are just the best that you want for the 2-drop.
I mean, this is the business right here. When I said that Ike's version of the deck has some high roll openings, Crystallizer into the Dreamwave Guardian.
Yep. With the Icon Bearer, I'm going to say a joke that's going to be told many, many times in the future.
Just don't. They've all done it themselves in their head. As soon as you said that, it's fine. We can move on.
I was going to make a squirrel joke.
Okay.
But it doesn't matter now, Sol, if you don't want to hear it. I was going to, start talking about the differences between red and grey squirrels, but it doesn't matter. Dreamwave Guardians.
Were you now?
Is it going to come down 100%?
I guess I have no way of proving that wrong now.
You know I have the knowledge of these things as well.
Yeah, that's true.
You can already see, though, just 2 mana, 2 1/2s in this current metagame is so powerful. It's just the multiple bodies that can get the work done. And this is really opening up the game for Ike, but let's just look at the rough build of A8 Shaman, because we can see 2 Thunderheads, which generate rush tokens, which are good at killing other tokens, alongside a few other cards like Lightning Storm, like the Hexes as well, but then also just Rain of Toads for late game. It's not looking bad. And just a side note, A8 also plays Sea Giants in this Shaman deck, so even Ike going wide could also hurt him once again, as you can see in the hand.
A8, considering how much merit there is to just taking the board right now, it uses up his coin and it does severely impact his curve for the following turns. But it'd be an uncontested Thunderhead against nothing in play for Ike.
Funnily enough, I think you 100% do this because, like you said, it's just so powerful on board right now. And then, yes, the next turn's weak, but in all honesty, how does Ike deal with a 3/5, and then at worst, the turn after, you can just drop another Thunderhead on the board?
Well, the fear is that, so you're giving Ike hand size again here with the squirrels going back to hand, so that your fear is that he plays Whispering Woods and says go, because your 3/5 does not do anything against that situation with your current hand. But A8, I think, giving testimony to the deck that he has built, knows that not only can he build a couple of minions and lick them to be able to just curve out, he also has various draws that give him those 1/1 rushes. You know, if he draws second Sludge Slurper, if he draws Lightning Bolt, Zap, Voltaic Burst, any of those cards and he's in business. Feral Spirit even, he'll have perfect mana for on the following
Storm
turn.
to even have tokens left over to just trade next turn. You know,
so he has so many options to be able to follow up. I will just say, he's not potentially dropping another Thunderhead on the board because he coined one out and overloaded for once. He's going to have 3 mana on the following turn.
Yeah, I mean, you can deal with it next turn and then just, at worst case, drop a Thunderhead the turn after.
Right.
But I will say, though, if he didn't do this turn, I feel like Ike's just saying go anyway, and then you're in kind of the same spot, but a bit later.
I agree.
And,
no,
and then the 2 tokens don't deal with anything.
Yeah, the difference is because your turn involves killing the Acorn Bearer, right? So you're giving him the Whispering Woods turn that isn't necessarily there if you just leave the Acorn Bearer alive on board. But I think the upside of getting the uncontested Thunderhead in play is just dramatically outweighs the potential chance that your opponent maybe has Whispering Woods in their hand, and then you offset that with all the insane draws that your deck can give you to get yourself out of it.
Oh my.
And Sea Giant, chief amongst that as well, is the kind of X factor that we haven't even mentioned.
Honestly, I saw a Shaman list after submission and was like, what the heck is this? Right, I just looked at it.
Same.
I've not seen anything like it. There's seemingly random cards in here.
Yeah.
But when you start looking at Thunderhead interactions with Sea Giants and then Soul of the Murloc as well, and Reign of Toads, I'm like, wait a minute. I think he's got a deck.
And it wasn't just us. Bloodyface, when he came into our player interview, he started like not breaking down only his own lineup, but talking about a lot of the other lineups of the players in the tournament as well. So for a joke, we handed him one of our research packets and said, hey, start grading all the decks in this lineup. A8 was on top, alphabetical order. He gave this Shaman deck an F-.
Woo. I don't think I would have gone. I couldn't give it that grade based on it being so out there that I felt like there would be something I've missed.
Right.
You know, there's an interaction I'm not seeing, and frankly, similar to what's happening, we can see right in front of our eyes now. I don't really know what Ike's supposed to do yet again. Because now A8 can do whatever he wants. He can't overload even if he wanted to, so he doesn't have overload card. Next turn he can Reign of Toads, and then what? There's one, not enough board space for everything, but also just even if one Toad is spawned, that's enough for Ike to get through that A8 will just kill him in that time.
Yep.
It's insane.
And I've kind of got to wind back on what I said during Ike's opening. You know, he had a Crystallizer into the Dreamway, but that's still missing a piece of the ultimate combo that he needs. He didn't find the payoff for getting the healing package to work, which is his Crystal Stags. He just didn't get there.
Most importantly as well, didn't find the AoE wide buffs.
Right.
Which is super, super important. And he doesn't play the Twin Spell one.
Nope.
Which is a big deal.
Yeah, it was something that he actually does believe in with Token Druid. We've talked about how he makes some changes to this deck if given more time, but he pointed out one of the series yesterday where the player was just stuck with both copies of the original Twin Spell version of that spell in their hand, and just saying, that's why I don't play that card. It's just way too clunky.
Yeah, as a completely non-Token Druid expert myself, I think I would go halfway between and play the one, because one card becoming 2 is just one extra draw for giving you a chance at drawing a buff, but not overload in terms of just having that many cards. But back in this game, it is just havoc, basically, for Ike going on here, because A8 can pretty much close his eyes and do whatever. Yes, oh no, Ike was on full health for a split second, but suddenly, this is just looking too hot to handle.
I do like this philosophy from A8. He's in such serious control of this game that it's probably a fairly pointless debate, but I like where he's come down, where he's just sending the Sea Giant face every turn and using his other minions to trade, even though he could probably be going face with everything or trading with everything, and they're all just equally viable. First off, you don't want to send an 8/8 into a 1/1 because you'll give Admirable a heart attack backstage. We don't want any of that business. But I do like that he's just saying, you know what? Make the big noise, first and foremost, 8 to face, get that done, and then just for the sake of decency and responsibility, I'll make some trades afterwards.
Right. And again, I feel like we could talk about deck building just all day, every day during this tournament. It's extremely
It's one of the biggest talking points of the tournament. You can't avoid it. It's what this this early metagame tournament really leads into.
And you've got to ask yourself, look at, and I'm going to be a bit extreme here as A8's just stomping through this game.
Yeah.
But this Life Weaver 3-drop that helps card generation, what if it was the, I think, Super Vendor 3-drop that when healed for 3 or more draws a card?
Okay.
You know, you start to add like, well, there's a lack of card draw. Maybe that's a different card that you could use and test out. But these players did not have the time. They had like a week to decide on their World Championship lineup, truly testing and pushing them to the limit to decide on this lineup for the most important tournament of these players' lives. And A8 going 2-0 up. And the question has to be asked, is this Druid, as maybe predicted by some players and maybe even Ike himself, just the massive weak link?
Very possibly. I mean, that was the battle of the two big question mark decks in the lineup, right? The Shaman from AA, I think, even after that performance, still has some questions to answer. Yeah. It has performed in a range of matchups so far. It's performed against a greedier Shaman deck, and it's performed against a more aggressive Token Druid deck and come out with flying colors on both sides. But certainly just a very X-Factor deck in A8's lineup, but then the Druid is Ike's version equivalent on his side as well. And so far, it seems pretty simple to say which one of those is coming out on ahead.
Yeah, it feels like we've put the foot on the gas in terms of series length, at least for us on the desk, as A8 is leading 2-0 over Ike, but I'm sure there's plenty of fight left in him, so we're going to see if Ike can fight back right after this.
Yeah, the tiebreak tussle was super stressful because I was unfavored against Definition and Yu Ying. So I was kind of in the mindset that I was probably going to lose, so try to like keep myself leveled if I did lose without getting too angry. But after I qualified, like the whole day was awesome. I probably partied with Firebat and Admirable and Bunny Hopper and just enjoyed the last day in California. I mean, yeah, I brought 3 aggro decks and then Control Warrior, which everyone's gonna ban. Like, my goal is to go 1, 2, 3, 4 and just go face and kill them, right? Like, I got nothing else up my sleeve here. I mean, it's kind of, I'm at a point where it's like flatlined in medical. Like, we don't really know what to do to make the situation better. And I guess Hearthstone's kind of flatlined too because there's nowhere else to go besides Worlds. But I don't know, I'm feeling good enough. Like, I'm happy to be at Worlds and it's definitely a fun time. I think besides myself, Muzzy or Sane have the best lineup against the field and have the best shot at winning Worlds. I'm here for the ride. Like, I'm not coming in thinking I'm gonna get out of Group, but I'm definitely confident in my play and being able to kind of win games that I probably shouldn't. So I'm hoping I nut draw a little and they don't nut draw. And then if I get it out of groups, I think I've got a good shot at winning.
Hello, I'm Kasper. My nickname is pretty original, HCT 83650, and I'm currently playing for Team Genji. So being in the world stage feels pretty amazing to me. I just cannot wait to play, first of all, in the group stage. Maybe I'll get further. I hope I'll get further, but it's not going to be easy because my group is pretty hard, but I will never give up. So looking at the lineups and looking at the bracket, I think Roger got a really good lineup for the tournament. He got a really good bracket as well because he's facing pretty much only Control Warriors in the part of his bracket. In the other part of bracket, there are mostly Bomb Warriors. So I think Roger will easily get out of the groups, and if he will get like favorable matchups in top 8, he can go really far, for example, to the final, or maybe even win the whole tournament. My fans are always supporting me, especially from the Polish community, and I'm really glad. I'm reading a lot of even small messages like good luck in the tournament, I'm cheering for you, I voted for you, and even if I don't respond, it still means a lot to me, and I'm really grateful to have such a big community in the Polish scene.
A8 got to be feeling good here, 2-0 versus Ike, and he could make quick work of this because we've talked a lot about Zoo, we've talked a lot about A8's Shaman deck. Oh no, he has to fall back on Rogue to get a win in the rest of this series, which is deemed probably the most powerful class just overall. in the game right now, so we'll see what he can do. And Ike's got his full lineup to go, and I believe he's just saying, look, this deck has to win or I lose anyway. I'm queuing the Druid once again.
Yeah. Worth noting on the Rogue side, though, that it is running below 50 in this tournament, which isn't surprising because the majority of players are going with the Ban Warrior target Rogue strategy. So, you know, if Rogue ends up batting 40-45% against the best decks that the field could come up to try and counter it, then, yeah, it's probably feeling pretty powerful. And A8 kind of going up against this with something that really Ike has probably cooked up to try and have a decent chance himself against Rogue.
Yeah, and let's just talk about just very, very quickly. We can get to Ike's opening hand in a minute, but just to know, A8 just threw away two mana 2/3s in his opening hand against a token deck.
Yeah, they're late game cards.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, just for players that may not be as familiar with this version, the Burglar version, do you want to just explain why? Because on surface, that looks weird.
Yeah, so when that card was revealed, one of the initial criticisms that people came out with, or one of the initial doubts that people had was, oh, we're not going to play that card because in order to use it, you need to play Pilfer. That's if you're going to play it on curve. And I don't think playing it on curve is necessary with how powerful the card is. You know, it's when it's a card that you can play in the late game, just take some value trades, use to clear out a Taunt, a Dread Corsair in the mirror, for example. It's incredibly valuable to trade through. And then when you combine that with Waggle Pick swings in the late game as well, and give yourself the ability to bounce it back to your hand for 0 mana, it becomes an incredibly useful tool in the mid to late game. So I think the mistake that a lot of people had, myself included, honestly, because when I talk about people who made that statement, I was amongst them, really missed, is that it's not doesn't have to be an early card. You know, we look at a potential Totem Golem and our instinct, because of how badly we were traumatized by Totem Golems, is to think about its effect on turn 2, whereas that card continues to be powerful throughout the game.
Okay, and I feel like we need to explain more, but there was no hero power from Ike either way, mainly because he does not want to gain armor. He wants to hurt himself as quickly as possible so he can actually get some heal shenanigans going off. Again, looks very strange, but it is correct in this weird world we live in today.
Yeah.
Interesting choices here, though. There is Coin Raiding Party just to get some stuff cooking, but not quite as powerful in this current meta because the weapon choice is a 4-drop and not the Shadow Blade from previous runs of a 3-drop, so it can't just be equipped next turn.
I was about to say, I like this a lot better than Coin Raiding Party because here, if Ike was to play his 3-mana 3/5 is called...
The Oni Tortoise.
Thank you. If he was to play the Tortoise, then in response, A8 can coin out his Hench Clan Burglar, get himself a spell from another class in his hand, 0 mana Vendetta, plus the Dagger Swing that he just equipped, full tempo swing, getting rid of that ability from Ike. Whereas if A8 dedicated so much time into drawing cards here, he would be at a significant tempo loss on the following turn, which can allow Ike to really take the game in a stranglehold.
Right, yeah, and now we see the crazy things that the Burgle Rogue could do. I've said already in this tournament, not one I would have taken, but the coin into Hench Clan Burglar, and now there is a 0 mana deal 4 card in A8's hand, and a 2 mana 3/4 rush card in his hand, plus the spell he's going to pick.
Plus the Arcane Missiles he's been offered against the token deck. Sign me up, coach.
Yep. This is a lot of on-demand and cheap removal. He can still re-dagger or eviscerate next turn, as well as dealing with the Underbelly Fence being played and a Vendetta.
And Ike is going to get some very, very bad news as he sees this Whispering Woods come down. And never mind the fan off the top. Ike, I'm so sorry. It does not appear to be your day, my friend.
I honestly do not know what I would prefer if I was sat in Ike's chair right now. The fan off the top or the Arcane Missiles off a Discover a spell.
Right.
Any spell that isn't Rogue.
I mean, if you were to offer Ike just the Arcane Missiles or the fan, he'd probably take the Arcane Missiles. It's the fact that it was going to be an Arcane Missiles plus an Underbelly Fence plus whatever
the
else.
Dagger Swing, which would have done the same job. Oh, here comes the Tortoise. I'm about to start trying to say it in really weird ways to make you get angry.
You already are, Raven. Don't worry about it.
Okay. And now just already... The Tortoise is just already dead, right? That's the problem. I talked about, well, if you get them out early enough or even coin them out, it's such a big minion that it shouldn't be out so early.
Yeah.
That it's going to be difficult to remove. That's part of the reason, along with the healing bonuses, that Ike's playing it. Well, Vendetta just laughs at it.
Right.
It's not even fun. 0 mana versus 3 mana, deal 5 to yourself.
Right.
He could even just throw the fence in to do the 1 damage if he really wants to save. No, and then just use the dagger on one of the squirrels if he really wanted to save health. That's how fine he is at this point. Is my point.
It's an accurate point, but a bizarre one to make.
I'm just trying to get across the point that A8 is very ahead.
Yes. On that, we can agree.
I didn't even see War Druid Lottie, which can be a rush. It can be a taunt. Both of these things help versus token decks.
Flash fails. Try crystal.
Speaking of crystals, Crystallizer into Crystal Power. It's going to be able to just chip off this Burglar, but as I said, there's just so much already for A8. And there's Lottie. Hovering. There's all the options. But I imagine it would be... Okay, going for the spell damage. I didn't even think about that one.
Yeah, I mean,
I didn't even think about it.
On average, this does something very similar to throwing it in as a rush anyway, except if that happens...
A little bit scary. That was not what was supposed to be played. The arcane missiles were supposed to hit more than that.
Yes. There's no real need to panic just yet for A8. He is still, as you mentioned earlier, very much in control of the situation.
Was the 1 extra hit really that much better than the taunt? I don't know. This doesn't have taunts, all.
I don't think taunt's too big of a deal. I guess it is.
Guards the 3 attacks.
Protects the 3/2s, yeah.
Because suddenly a Savage Roar now does a pretty reasonable job of being able to clear some of this up.
Right.
Because Ike, although we're talking about how much removal A8 has, A8 is also edging towards just killing his opponent, because Ike is only on 18 health right now. And there is the Savage Roar available. Again, 1 mana away, though, from Savage Roar plus something worthwhile.
And I believe having used his Crystal Power as damage, that stag is not active just yet. This has been the problem for Ike. We just haven't seen any of these power cards really coming out in their synergistic forms. Like, yeah, sure, it's a 4/4 rush at this point. But it's not the big power play that he's put it in his deck to achieve.
And I feel like we haven't really mentioned this on the desk yet because, I'll be honest, the time has flown by. But this is an elimination match. You can see it on the screen, though, that the loser is out. It'll all get serious once we hit the Saturday, the 3rd day of the World Championship here. And Ike is just 1 step away from losing and being knocked out of this tournament.
Yeah, what I will say is that little catastrophe for A8 on the previous turn has opened up this window now where Ike finding a play off the top there, even though it was a mediocre one with the Crystal Stag, has put him in a position where he has just bridged that gap into his Forest Aid now. He's not necessarily being faced down with lethal as far as he can see. A8 does have the opportunity to just go down that lethal route anytime he wants because he has a Leroy that he could just be playing and shadow stepping back to his hand at any point. That's a very scary thing to be doing against a token deck.
Mortal Strike. A8 has the capabilities to put Ike low enough. Even if Mortal Strike just hit for 4 anyway, it would be plenty as the extra damage. And because I think Ike just has to play Forest Aid. He has to. There's no way to win. He can't be defensive. He can't try and remove anything this turn. He has to play Forest Aid.
That's just it.
But that looks like the lethal to me. And A8, we turned up the speed of the day. A is going to go 3-0 and knock Ike out of the World Championship here off the back of this Token Druid. And he knew it wasn't his best deck. He knew the build wasn't really where he wanted it. And he has paid that price as A8 saves his life in this tournament and moves on.
And turn 8 Rogue strikes again. A8 just kept developing for board, recognized that even if the twin spell did come down, he had the setup covered anywhere where Leroy Shadow Step, or in the end, the time saver Leroy Eviscerate was able to get the job done. It's a heartbreaker for Ike, who is one of the most likable and most popular guys in this tournament. Such a great honor to have seen him make it this far in the first place, and a great shame to see him go home early, but we have to not play favorites in this tournament. Everyone here is a fantastic player. Everyone here is deserving of their spot, and there's going to be some heartbreak to go along with the victories.
This is what happens on Elimination Day, Sol. Every single match is going to be a nice moment for one player and a huge upset for the rest. As we see Ike being knocked out there, A8 does move on to a decider match versus Hunter Ace, another name that you'd be shocked to see be knocked out, but like you said, the tournament's so stacked that that's just going to start happening now.
Yeah, and if we get to the position now where after Hunter Ace and Saiyan went neck and neck, trying to, flying the flags, waving the flags in each other's face of the EU region and the North America's region respectively, arguments back and forth all year as to who was the most dominant player, Hunter Ace ending up being the global points leader, but Saiyan coming on stronger towards the end of the year. If they then both get put in the same group together with two other incredible players, and they both then make it out to potentially meet again later on in the bracket, like what a story that would be.
And I would approve that story with no problem at all, but it was a very, very quick series for you guys and for these players here as A8 just showed dominance over this Druid deck, and as we said, it did look like the weakest deck by far for Ike's lineup and one of the weaker ones from the tournament, but A8 made short work of it. But there are still questions to be asked of his Shaman deck, but I'm sure he'll be answering them very, very soon. Congratulations to A8, commiserations to Ike, but there's plenty more Hearthstone to be played today, so don't go anywhere, and we'll be right back.